As we mark and celebrate Women's Day each year, we often have a conversation revolving around high achievers, about women who've broken through glass ceilings, who have managed to make a name for themselves and achieve their ambitions. But one very important aspect that perhaps falls by the wayside in these conversations is how crucial financial independence is to each and every woman. It's not really a choice or an option. It should be something that every woman needs, and it needs to be inculcated in the way they move forward and they work in their life, whether they come from well-to-do families, whether they're working women, or whether they don't really have the means yet. This is something that we're going to focus on in this special show today. SBI General Insurance presents Importance of Financial Independence for Women, partnered by ETNow. And I have a great panel with me today to talk about some of these aspects. I'm joined by Shefali Khalsa, Head Brand and Corporate Communications at SBI General Insurance. Sudha Menon, author, is joining us today on the show. I'll also be speaking with Dr. Kamna Chibbar, clinical psychologist and head of mental health at Fortis Healthcare, and Patricia Narayan, MD of Prasann Catering Services, who has a great story to share with us as well. Thank you to all of you for speaking with us today on the show. Great to have you here. Shefali, let me just begin by getting your perspective on the premise I set in the introduction of the show of how this is a part of the conversation that sometimes goes missing. Even as we talk about the improvement in women's education, more women in the workplace, they're moving ahead. But why financial independence is a key component to this entire picture?
I would say India has progressed, but I would say it is also at the cusp right now. So while we are talking about India in 2021, there are still some stats that actually signifies this, that the worldwide women workforce is about 38 to 40%, but in India we are still about 22-23% of women workforce overall. I would say financial independence is just not having a working woman, but the financial independence overall is how you believe having that personal freedom. So whether it's a working woman who manages her investments and tax filing, etc., or a homemaker who manages her budget throughout the month, there is this innate trait of managing money for every woman. I would also like to mention that from my point of view, there is a way that we can find a solution to increase this definition or the penetration of financial independence better by introducing investments and insurance in the school curriculum.
Yeah.
And we can also bring about a practical session in colleges, which is more of a pseudo investment or insurance claiming, that will also bring in, or rather remove that fear of having this subject as more complex.
That's the thing. There is so much of fear with the idea of financial investments, of we don't know what it means. So it's best left to the father, the husband, or the men of the house. And why do you think it's important to break that barrier, and how could it be done? Let me take that question to you again, Shefali.
I would partly agree to this because with me, in my 14 years of marriage, I have been the one who is taking all the insurance policies. So I would want today's Indian women to take this as an inspiration that it is not really a complex subject. It is all about the surroundings that we have grown up. It is the content that we have consumed so far. I think that has to evolve. It is more of a mental block. That we believe that it is complex, while also with the fact that investment and banking is considered as complex, insurance is considered as 2x complex. But it is all about how you absorb that, make it more practical. In fact, there are brands, insurers who are trying to make not just the buying journey simpler, but also the products which are simpler, easy to understand and easy to buy. So I think we are definitely going to evolve in this.
The importance of what it means to be financially independent. I think we should talk about that. Why is it important to be financially independent? It's not just so that you have agency, you have choice to buy what you want without asking someone else. And here, Sudha Menon, she's a prolific writer. I want to quote from one of your books where you say, the most important thing for a woman anywhere in the world is to be able to live a life of self-respect and dignity. At the essence of it Is that what financial independence is about?
I think so. I think so. Because when a woman has her own means, when a woman has control on what she has, what she owns, it is very, very important for women to have assets of their own. Because when she has assets, she gets control on her, on not just her life, but she gets a chance to say what happens in the rest of her family, in the rest of her community. Her voice is noted many times, and even now, even in urban India, there are lots of untold stories of women who have everything ostensibly, but nothing because they don't have control over their assets. A woman who has money or a woman who has means can send her children to school, send her girl children to school, and I'm talking not about urban pockets, I'm talking about the vast rural pockets of India. Girl children don't go to school because the men take the decisions. And when women take decisions with money on their side, their health is better in that community. Girl children go to school more. There is more hygiene. Overall, the community itself develops much faster. And on a personal side, just as a woman who has some means of her own, she escapes this entire net of abuse and just not being taken seriously about anything. So if you have the means, if you have ownership of asset, if you have a job, if you have a house,
and to protect yourself,
Absolutely.
to spend on your safety, your health, and those around
Absolutely.
you. Dr. Kamla Shibar, what is the impact of that on a way a woman perceives herself, the way society perceives herself, and her emotional health as well?
Very profound impact. For women who have financial independence, we have seen there are enough indicators to suggest that they end up having a better sense of self, an enhanced sense of who they are, what they want to move towards, and they can feel that sense of control, a sense of direction. And it makes a huge impact on the levels of their own confidence, their self-esteem, how much they believe they have the agency to be able to bring about the kind of changes that they do desire. At the end of the day, when we're looking at mental health of people, what are we talking about? We're saying people need to be able to find ways to be able to experience joyfulness and happiness in their day-to-day functioning. They should be able to think clearly. They should be able to take the actions, the courses, the choices that they want to make. And that should be facilitated by the kind of means that they have around them. And one of the aspects which is related to that is finance. It's about the kind of security, the safety that you tend to derive out of knowing that, yes, I can make these choices. And I think it's very important for us to try and understand that it's not just about whether society or culture accepts this or permits this. It's also about how are we as women associating with it. Oftentimes, because it's a subject which is not necessarily talked about enough, there is a lot of apprehension in trying to engage with it. So there is this need to try and distance yourself from it because you feel unsure about, would I be able to? Can I make the right choice? A lot of times you would want to deny, say that, I don't want to even look at it. There's a lot of fear. Let my father look at it. Let my brother look at it. Let my husband look at it. My partner look at it.
While we're talking about what financial independence can do for a woman, I must go across to Patricia Narayan, who has a really amazing story to share and something which would probably give hope to so many. Patricia, so glad you could join us on the show today. Patricia Narayan started her journey towards financial independence from a small stall in Marina Beach and then now has worked up to a sizable business today in the restaurant space. Tell us, Ms. Narayan, what was the sort of biggest part of moving towards this goal of financial independence and how it has changed your life?
According to me, what I would say is I always believe in a quote. It says that there is no dignity quite so impressive and no independence quite so important as living within your means. So when a woman is able to earn something for herself, she has the confidence. And this, I quote this from my own life story. Like when I was dependent on my family and my husband for all my means, I was treated very badly. But when I gained my own confidence, how I gained my confidence was when I started making the few rupees which I started initially. So Definitely, I would say a woman should be financially independent. The next thing only goes for savings and other things. The first thing to keep up herself, her self respect, her self esteem, she has to be financially independent. So I would strongly suggest that every woman, whatever, as people say, whether they are earning or they are a housewife, even a housewife. I mean, we women are very good at multitasking. Even a housewife, she saves some money, but she doesn't know where to put it, of course. But that we have to have people talking like the bankers and the insurance people and all that. But then I'm still learning. In my age now, I'm learning a lot of things. But then this has to be brought across to women to tell them how they can invest and how they can be financially independent. This is very, very important at this stage.
Patricia, ma'am, you mentioned that when you were not financially independent, you were not treated as well. Tell us what changed. What has changed today
Yeah,
in the way people look at you?
in that case, I have to tell you a little bit of my story. See,
Yes.
mine was a civil marriage. I went out of house, and all that was different. But my husband was a total. He was an alcoholic. He was a drug addict, and all that, which I did not know prior to my marriage. So when I left my house and I was on the crossroads, there was nobody to fall back on. But suddenly, all of a sudden, I knew that I had to take care of myself. And there was nobody to support me. And whatever little bit I had with me was taken away. And that was the time like I realized that money is everything. Like money, you have to have money to maintain your self-respect, you maintain your standards, and you have, if you have to live a normal life. And that is when I started my catering. I started with a little bit of pickles and jams. And when the first amount which I received, maybe even the first bottle of pickle when I sold, and I got a 2 rupee or 3 rupee profit. So making yourself financially independent is really, really important.
Let me come to you on this aspect, Shefali, about planning for a future. You know, like you mentioned, India anyway has very poor insurance penetration. Yes. A large part of our population is figuring out their next meal, their next month, their next payment. Why is it important, and how do we inculcate the aspect of thinking about the future, and especially for women who sometimes don't want to even prioritize things like health insurance, where their own well-being comes in? If they have some money, it's for everyone else. How do we change that?
Yes, I would say overall the insurance penetration, not just life, but general insurance per se, the penetration is very low. In India, it is almost 1%. Compared to the evolved markets, it is much higher. So and in fact, further funneling down, I would say the male-female skew, there's a large gap. It's a very significant gap. One way, as I mentioned, we should also include the investment in insurance, as a part of the school curriculum, and also the practicals in the college. That can help. I would say, in fact, the insurers are also working, their bit to improve, this gap between the male-female skew by having the messaging about insurance through a female brand ambassador. So that also actually is, in a way, because I manage the brand and marketing also for my brand. So that also is a way to connect with the female audience and make it more, easier for them to connect. But still there is a lot that we can do, while India is putting a deliberate effort that mandating to have woman director, at least one woman director on board. That is one deliberate step to increase this workforce. On the hindsight, there is only 13% of the women directors in the listed companies. So that's one side of this. Beyond that, there are stats. I would say that while we want to progress, but it is not a leapfrog that we are able to take. It is a very slow crawling that we are taking. So there are some stats which also supports that women leadership percentage in India has grown only by 0.5% from 2014 to 2019. So it was 3.2%, it has moved to 3.7%. So needle has to further move. There's a lot that I'm sure while we look at the metro and urban segment, the picture is quite different.
Yes.
But from the rural segment, it's a hard fact that internet access by rural women is still 33%, while in urban it is 51.1%. And when we talk about women force in India, about 20 to 23% is the stats that support. Out of that, 91% of the percentage of the women workforce is informal segment, which is not really counted.
How do you protect them? How do you cover them? That really is the big challenge. We've, I think, outlined what the situation is, what the problems are. I think we should now talk about what can be done. That's a takeaway which we can leave our viewers with today. Sudha Menon, in your view, what really is the key to tell women, and from when they are children actually, that's a great idea that you inculcate this in schools, that yes, you have to do well in class, you have to get good marks, etc. But financial independence and financial information, financial education needs to be a part of it. It's something you learn right from the beginning.
Show by example. Really show by example. If I were to just offer myself as an example, I was a railwayman's daughter, very middle class family. My mother married at 16 and had 4 children and spent her entire life looking after, raising us. She didn't have a job. Her full-time job was raising her children. I think I was the first person in my family at 22 to buy insurance. And that was really something. There was actually a celebration in my house when I bought that first insurance. I was a journalist, and I think almost the first salary I got, I invested in insurance. When I was 25 and a young mother, by then I had lost, by then I had lost that thing that I should save money. I was living a life of like, kal dekha jayega. And then somebody my mother sat me down and said, you have to plan for the future. You have a daughter and you have to raise her with education. You have to raise her as a very strong woman. We come from a family of very strong women. And she said that I did not have the choices at 16 because I got married. I didn't have the life that I would have chosen, but you have that. You have education, you have money. This is where your life is going to be different from mine. So show children by example. I started saving in mutual funds at 25, and the rest of my life has been riding, leveraging that money that I made in my investments. So I educated myself continuously.
That's amazing.
At each step. Show your children by example. Allow them to save. If you give them pocket money, tell them that part of it should be saved every month. Show them the result, the magic of compounding. What happens to your money when you put 10 rupees in a bank, for instance, at the end of 2 years, what happens to it? What happens to a woman who has money? Show them by example. I think we are living in a country where there are so many women who are leading the life of their choice. Show your children that. Show your girl children that, and say this is possible for you too.
And Dr. Chibber, if you could come into this, in most families, typically the structure is that the men in the family decide about the finances. We need to change that at some point where women, where girls, where young women know that it's also something which is on their list of things to do to make sure that they're financially secure.
Absolutely. These conversations need to become normalized conversations. I think a lot of times money is looked at as this really big thing which just cannot be spoken about. We don't necessarily talk to our children a lot of times about what are the kind of incomes we have, what is it that we can afford, where is that money being put. That hesitation needs to be let go of. If you're not going to work on the hesitation that exists in people's mind about talking about money, talking about wealth, talking about savings, talking about how do you build a life for your own self, and those conversations do not include the younger generation, there is going to be no shift happening. The adults already have a certain subset of knowledge that needs to go on to the younger people, and the younger people need to expand on it. And that kind of encouragement needs to come from all spaces. And I think it's very important for us to understand that some people may have the benefit of having the right kind of support systems where people will plug in and say that, and they'll push you towards that end. But a lot of people will not have that. they would not have that kind of support, or they would not have those kind of people around them who can guide them. And I think as a result, it becomes also a community effort which needs to come into play. So if I know people around me who may not be making those choices, or who may not have that kind of understanding, I, as a woman who may understand certain things, can certainly share that knowledge and that information. And that's how you create the right kind of community connect. It's not I for myself. It's all of us together trying to find ways to build the right kind of community around us. We need to come together, pool our resources, pool our efforts, because like Shefali has pointed out, like you've pointed out, there is such a gap. It has to be our individual responsibility as members of community to come together to bring that change. That's the way forward.
Patricia, you know, as we're talking about what is the kind of advice we can give to people watching this, what would you like to add? What is the kind of lesson you would want people to take away from your own journey?
Okay, like if I have to share something, to tell you the fact, I was running away from the insurance people, I told you. But then later on, like maybe only a few years back, I started realizing that savings like anytime when we talk about insurance, it was only what we knew was only life insurance. So immediately the thought comes is, okay, when we are there, we pay money, and when we die, somebody takes it. I mean, so that was not quite interesting. But then, as you said, now at the present moment, insurance and savings should be a part of the curriculum. It should be taught from a very young age, because we don't discuss finances with children, and children don't know the value for money. So if that has to come into play, this is out of my experience again, because I have really made this mistake and I'm trying to rectify this now. So now children at a very young age, they should know what finances are. They should know what is happening at home, in the home front. And finances should be discussed with children, and saving should be a part of their everyday life. This is precisely what I wanted to say, and thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much once again, Patricia, for joining us and telling us about your story. It's truly inspirational.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for joining us on this fantastic discussion today, and I want to thank all of you viewers as well for watching the SBI General Insurance Presents Importance of Financial Independence for Women, partnered by ETNow. Thank you for watching.